are listening to the Up and Under podcast, starting in 3, 2, 1.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome into the Up and Under podcast. I'm your host, Hani. Join with me, as always, it's Zeeshan.
Yo.
All right, man. So now we're about almost a quarter away through the season.
Time flies.
Time does fly. You know what? We're almost a month and a half into the season. Crazy. But now we're starting to see what teams are actually going to be like. Who are the true kind of good teams and who are the true kind of bad teams? But there are teams that kind of either fall short of expectations or are just performing in a level that you could just question, like, what's wrong with them? You know what I'm saying? So that's a question that we want to answer for two teams that are underperforming in their own unique ways. You know, one of them hits very home for us, and the other is a very popular topic right now. And yes, we have no choice but to talk about them. They're a huge brand. So we wanted to answer the question, what's wrong with the Los Angeles Lakers and the Toronto Raptors? But before that, if you haven't already done so, definitely subscribe to the show on all the platforms. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio. Basically, wherever you can find a podcast, you can find us with the Up and Under podcast. So definitely subscribe there so you don't miss out on great content from us in the future. But the Los Angeles Lakers and the Toronto Raptors, both teams struggling in their own ways. Now, in the case for the Lakers, they were trying to be a contender. And I say trying, because that's what they're supposed to do. When you have the best player in the world, and again, that's a debate at this point of if he still is. I still think he is.
Well, again, you kind of also have to be on the court to be the best player in the world.
That is true.
Unfortunately, it does seem like Father Time is starting to catch up.
But regardless of the fact, the Lakers were built as if they're trying to win a championship. The Raptors, meanwhile, they weren't necessarily built to win a championship, but they were more so built to be, a decent mid-tier team. And so far, both teams are kind of falling short on that one.
Yeah, man. So starting out with the biggest team arguably in the league, we have the Los Angeles Lakers. And currently, they're struggling, to put it lightly. They have a 9-10 record. Bad enough for the 9th seed in the West, which is definitely not what they expected to be at this current juncture in the season. They're 25th in offensive rating, 20th in defensive rating, and they have the 24th overall net rating. So they're bottom 10. They're a bottom 10 team in the league, basically. And to your point, that's not something you want to be as a championship contender, especially with the types of names that they have and the fact that they have LeBron James. They have one of the biggest markets in the league, and they are by far one of the most polarizing teams in the league, let's face it. So for the Lakers, starting out, we have to talk about the injuries firstly. They've already ran 9 different starting lineups. Basically, everyone on the team has missed time. Kendrick Nunn and Trevor Ariza, two big offseason additions for them, haven't even played a game for them yet. I think actually maybe Kendrick Nunn might have played. I'm not sure, but basically they haven't played at all. LeBron James, arguably the league's best player, and definitely the Lakers' most important player, has missed 11 of their 19 games so far. Now, he missed 10 due to various injuries, and one obviously for the suspension that we'll talk about later on. But yeah, so like I mentioned, the injuries have just decimated the Lakers. And again, this is not something you wanted to happen, but when you have a team as old as the Lakers, this is kind of expected to happen. You can't assemble a team with a bunch of 35-plus-year-olds, a bunch of 30-plus-year-olds, and not, unfortunately, expect there to be some sort of, injury repercussions for that.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hinted at it earlier. Father Time is, LeBron's in year 19. At this point, we kind of expect some level of decline of some kind. And honestly, it does seem like his body isn't holding up as it used to, as it normally does, as we're accustomed to seeing it, perform at. And that's no fault of LeBron, but it's just kind of how things are. And the Lakers, as an organization, should have foreseen that and kind of gotten more useful figures rather than going after the veterans that they, went after. I joked all offseason that it was the retirement home, and you can kind of see why.
And because of those said injuries, they've had a lack of proper rotations. They haven't had a proper team to sort of build. We know with championship contenders, chemistry is arguably the most important factor in building those contenders. And if you have a team that's swapping guys in and out every single day, it's not gonna work. Now, again, we can throw it back to a couple years ago when we talked about the Toronto Raptors and the team that they won a championship with. Now, they kind of had guys coming in and out of the lineup as well, but they at least had a stable core. They had a core that had been there for a couple of years together. They added in a guy like Kawhi Leonard, who's a robot and who just comes onto the court and, plays like a top 5 player in the league.
Dominates.
And the Lakers currently don't have that. They have LeBron, but obviously, as we mentioned, year 19, it's not going so well. And then, AD is a step below that, and the rest of their team is completely new. It's literally a whole new team. And so, because of those injuries...
Like only 3 guys from last season are still on the team?
Exactly, yeah. 3 guys only. And due to that, they can't build a proper, rotation. First of all, a guy like DeAndre Jordan, I think, should be banned from the basketball court. Let me just put that first, bro. I don't understand how this guy still plays actual minutes.
Because Andre Drummond still plays.
In fairness to Andre Drummond, he's been pretty damn good for the Sixers, which, I didn't see coming, but pleasant surprise for the Sixers. DeAndre Jordan, the Lakers should have learned from his Brooklyn stint. This guy sucks. Basically the only thing that went well for his career and his calling card for his whole career was A, lob threat, and B, defensive anchor. Now, he basically plays no defense at this stage of his career, and the Lakers can't get any lobs because of the fact that they have no dribble penetration. Why don't they have any dribble penetration? As I'll talk about later, lack of shooting. When everyone can clog up the lane, you're not going to get
I was going to
lobs.
add one more. For DeAndre Jordan, it's no Chris Paul. Again, you need a guy an elite pass, at least an elite passer to get you the ball in the right spots.
I mean, Russell Westbrook's a pretty good lob passer, I would say.
He's not Chris Paul.
But he's not Chris Paul. And so, again, like I said, DeAndre Jordan should be out of the rotation completely. They're still starting out DJ at the center spot for each half. So he's playing approximately like 12 minutes a game. That's not going to win many games for you. Their second most used lineup has 2 bigs in it with Anthony Davis and DeAndre Jordan. Now, again, we've already mentioned previously many times that AD is most successful playing the center position. But, with DeAndre Jordan especially, rather than a guy like Dwight Howard, it's not going to work. And plus, on top of that, Frank Vogel's also ran some weird lineups, which he's been known to do, and which has also been a constant criticism of his. For example, running like a Rondo Westbrook lineup, I don't know how he thought that would be a good idea, but he's done it.
On what planet?
And like I said, it's been an issue since last year for Frank Vogel, and it's been kind of like a constant theme throughout his coaching career.
Listen, I'm going to say one thing about Frank Vogel, and this is something that we said when he was first hired. Was he truly the best coach you can absolutely find? I don't think he was, man. Like, in terms of pure X's and O's, he's okay. He's not the type of coach who can overcome circumstances like the one that the Lakers are in right now.
Especially offensively. But, like, it just doesn't make any sense. And I wouldn't be surprised, and again, we'll talk about Zeeshan's hit list later, but I wouldn't be surprised if Frank Vogel is the next name on that list to lose his job, because quite frankly, he isn't doing a good job and the team is suffering even though expectations are sky high. Well, first of all, I haven't put Frank Vogel on my coaching list.
Not yet.
My coaching hit list. But again, it's a common theme. And because of all these issues, again, the Lakers' play style has not been great. Their players have not meshed at all. Again, lack of minutes together, just bad overall fit on the team. The team constructed by Rob Pelinka. They have the issue with the Lakers is that they have no clear identity of what they want to be. And Kenny Smith brought this up on TNT the other night. At least when they had their championship season, they struggled offensively, but they had an identity that they could, fall back on, which was you play defense and the offense will find itself at least a little bit, right? You rely on your 2 guys, LeBron and AD, to carry the hell of your offense, and you just play amazing defense, especially amazing interior defense. You basically allow nothing at the rim. This Lakers team has no identity at all. With their players, for example, Russell Westbrook, we know how good he is when he has spacing around him, when he can run up and down the court. He's had no space to work with, which is basically reduced his effectiveness to being a half-court point guard who can't shoot at all. We've seen a guy like Ben Simmons. Doesn't work that well in today's NBA. It doesn't work that well.
Except Russ actually shoots the ball.
Yeah, at least Russ shoots the ball. Maybe he should probably shoot a little less. That's another discussion. But Anthony Davis has been, credit to him, he's been pushing through injuries and illness and whatnot.
But why? Again. It's the same thing with Anthony Davis over and over and over again. Why can't this guy stay healthy? Even now, he's missing the game. On the day we're recording, he's missing tonight's game.
Yeah.
Because he has a fever.
But again, because of that, he's also being inconsistent. I'll talk about his shooting a bit later. LeBron James, we know will be fine, but he also kind of needs to figure out what his role is going to be in the system, because even I don't think he knows exactly what it's going to be. And especially at this stage of his career, he can figure it out, but with the amount of games that he's missing, it's not conducive to success. Another guy, Carmelo Anthony, who has been arguably one of their, not arguably, has been one of their best offensive players. But the problem is he sucks defensively. You're kind of forced to play Melo big minutes because of how much value he has for you on the offensive end. But he's arguably giving as many points up on the defensive end as he, scores on the offensive end.
I will say this for Melo. His jumper this season has been on fire.
Beautiful, man.
But honestly, the guy is shooting the best he's ever shot in his career, and it kind of sucks that he finally decides, okay, I want a ring chase, and this is the situation he got put in.
He gets what his role is gonna be, right? He knows what it's gonna be. Basically, on the team, the only guys that have actually had positive plus minuses on the team is LeBron James, Talen Horton-Tucker, who's sucked the last few games, and Austin Reeves. And so, that's kind of not, again, conducive to success.
Yeah, when you said Austin Reeves, I was about to say who?
He's their Alex Caruso replacement, basically. And I really like him as a player.
So they found another white bald guy. Where's the headband?
He's not bald. But he is another white guy, basically. And so, again, the question, like I said, what is the team's identity? What is their system on either end of the court? Again, at this rate, Frank Vogel is going to get himself fired. They've had one of the league's easiest schedules so far. They've had 9 games facing teams who are currently out of the playoff race. And they're, again, like I said, 9-10 right now. So it's not going good for them at all. Their offense, they're 29th in turnovers. They're, turning the ball over basically every single possession. It seems like they're 25th in free throw percentage with, averaging around 74% of their makes. They can't shoot. They're 14th in percentage at 34.6%. So they're below average shooting the ball from 3. They rank 21st in attempts. So they don't take that many threes. They're not making that many threes. LeBron James shooting 36% on 7.5 attempts per game. Meanwhile, AD shooting 19% on 1.9 attempts. Russ shooting 30.2 on 4.5 attempts. So their big three as a whole cannot shoot besides LeBron James. And, you're asking LeBron James to do a lot. Other guys on their team, THT, Rajon Rondo, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, Ken Bazemore, Dwight Howard, DeAndre Jordan. I just named 7 of their top, rotation guys. None of those guys can shoot. So, again, offensively, they have no identity. Anthony Davis, for example, he doesn't get on the block when there's another center. Not conducive to success. Russell Westbrook seems to have no idea when to run and when to slow down. Again, lack of identity. LeBron James at this stage of his career is just launching threes, kind of has to. And also there's no space, like I mentioned. And another question to ask is Russell Westbrook having the highest usage rate on the team? Is that a good idea?
Nope, not at all. But again, when you think about the names you just mentioned, THT, we knew he couldn't shoot. He's a slasher. Rondo, we knew he can't shoot. AD, man, I don't know what to tell you anymore. I keep saying the guy tries to act like a guard when he's a big, but he's too afraid to post up down low, even though he can outmuscle a lot of guys.
Again, it's a mental thing, I think.
But he's scared of getting hurt. Russell Westbrook, we all know he can't shoot, even though he'll take however many attempts he wants. Kent Bazemore's the only surprising one because especially after the Warriors stint that he had, he should realistically be shooting better. So he might be able to turn it around. But again, Dwight Howard, never been a shooter.
Well, Ken Bazemore's always been an inconsistent guy,
yeah, but regardless, I expect out of all these guys, he's the only one who has the potential to turn it around. And then DeAndre Jordan, you just mentioned, the guy can barely play offense anymore. He barely can get up the court anymore. So, the Lakers, and we said this when they brought Russell Westbrook onto this team, how is this going to work? You know what I'm saying? And so far, it's kind of proved us all right, where it's just there's no spacing on this team. Westbrook cannot play, especially with the starting 5, with LeBron and AD. He just doesn't fit that.
Yeah, I think Also, the most disappointing thing has been the defense, I would say, more so than the offense, because of the fact that Frank Vogel's calling card is his defense. And when their defense has been bottom 10 in every statistic except for basically blocks and turnovers forced, that's not a good sign for a team that has championship aspirations. If you want to be a championship contending team, you have to have at least a top 10 defensive rank. The last team that I've seen, and the only team in recent memory that had a garbage defense that still made it to the finals was that 2018 Cavs team, right? Who basically played no defense.
That was a disgraceful team, man, because they beat the Raptors and
sad times. Man, sad times. They don't defend the three at all. Their bigs, for example, DeAndre Jordan, like I mentioned, he just sags. He basically does nothing on defense. Their guards don't get around screens or offer any sort of resistance on the three-point line, especially a guy like Russell Westbrook, unfortunately, who's always been known as a lazy defender. So, their defense is garbage. They don't defend well in two-point range. They're 20th in the league in, two-point field goal percentage. For the opposing teams. And basically, I think for defensively, a lot of it comes down to heart. We know that, right? The Lakers, obviously, as a veteran team, seem to be playing through the motions a lot, seem to not be playing hard enough. Now, again, I've seen an interesting point I saw from somebody was that it's the LeBron James effect. LeBron does not really try that much in the regular season. But again, what we have to understand is that, and the rest of the Lakers also have to understand that works for LeBron James. Why? Because he's a top 3 player of all time. He can do whatever he wants in the regular season. We all know what happens come playoff time. He balls out. The rest of these guys cannot do that. It doesn't work for them. So even if they are veterans like Carmelo Anthony, like Russell Westbrook, like AD, you can't be going through the motions, man. You gotta be into guys defensively. You gotta be playing that gritty type of defense.
Especially this guy, because of the amount of money that he's getting paid, the way he forced himself to come to Los Angeles. There's expectations that come with this. And the fact is that you're not even 30 years old. You're one of the young guys on the team. And you got one of the guys putting the least amount of effort in. Even though you were a Defensive Player of the Year candidate like a couple of years ago. And the thing with this Lakers, just to give you the rebuttal to what you said about, LeBron doesn't do it, the LeBron effect. LeBron doesn't play for you. You play for yourself. So that's the thing. So if LeBron's not trying, that's his thing. You gotta go on the court. You gotta earn your money. So that's not a valid reason, to be honest with you. And the fact of the matter is, they're all veterans. They're all coasting because they all don't want to get hurt. They're trying to prepare for the playoffs.
To your point, Melo said it best before the season, right? If they fail, that's on them. Why? Because they're veterans. They know how to win. Most of those guys have been on winning teams, right? And so if they're failing, that's their own fault. Especially a guy like this, a guy like AD you mentioned is disappointing because it seems like he's regressed instead of progressed. Oh, yeah. It seems like he's regressed. And unfortunately, the reality of the fact is that LeBron has numerous times said that this is AD's team. Unfortunately, the reason why it seems like it's still LeBron's team is because whenever LeBron is out, AD seems to not want to take it, right? AD isn't that guy, unfortunately, for the Lakers. And it's sad because LeBron, we know, is at the end of his career.
And he has so much potential to be that guy. Imagine how skilled Anthony Davis actually is. He can shoot. Now, this season, we're not counting the season, but he can shoot. He has the mid-range. He can post you up. He's athletic. He can guard multiple positions.
He can do everything.
He is the key big man that every team wants, but he... A, can't stay healthy, and B, has a motivation problem. The guy doesn't want to be the main guy.
Especially when the Lakers paid this guy to not only be LeBron's co-star, but to be his successor, right? So for some next steps for the Lakers, again, AD needs to basically step up his shooting. I think also Frank Vogel needs to get him some easier threes. Specifically in some corner threes. We know the easiest three-point shot in the league is a corner three.
Or some post-ups. That'll be nice.
Well, I mean, they try to, but the problem is half of his minutes basically are, with another big, and you can't really post up like that.
Because he can't play center.
And, so I think getting him some corner threes would help, bump up that percentage. Unfortunately, the Lakers still have to rely on LeBron James to basically win them games. And that's, again, not a conducive way to success. When LeBron James does sit, though, they have to, I think the key for them is that they just have to run like crazy with Westbrook. Westbrook, I think, is the key for them to have their success. And in order for them to have success with Westbrook, I think they just need to be running up and down the court. Now, again, the Lakers are second in pace, so they have been trying to do that. But I think when LeBron James sits down, I think they just need to commit to that 100%.
Like my idea, and like this was something that someone actually suggested to me. Is like, okay, because you can't bench Russell Westbrook, you can play him with the starters for the first few minutes, sub him off, and then run him with the second unit. Because at least with the second unit, you can play him alongside some other shooters, and at least get some floor spacing that way, and just make Westbrook the prime focus on offense.
Again, ideally, I think you would have Westbrook off the bench, but nobody's gonna put him off the bench with this contract.
$44 million, you can't put that guy off the bench.
Exactly,
it's impossible.
They also have to shoot better at the line now. Again, I don't know if they will, just because of how none of these guys are great free throw shooters. They're 6th in attempts, so they are getting trips to line. The unfortunate thing is they're not making it, right? They're 25th in percentage at the line. So they're getting to the line, but they're not making it. And I think for the Lakers, again, the easiest thing to say is, make some trades, because of the fact that the issues with this team are a core fundamental issue with the roster construction. They basically need some younger players who won't get injured as easily. They need some three-point shooters, especially I think a stretch big would be nice. And they need some defenders, especially at the wings. Now, again, that's very easy to say, but, the Lakers are kind of limited in what they can do in terms of the trades.
Hey, I mean, they had that in Alex Caruso, but they let him walk. They couldn't afford to pay him, but they were able to go out and trade for Russell Westbrook. Like, this is why the Lakers and like the way they operate as a franchise makes no sense, because they don't focus on development. They just focus on what can we buy and accumulate.
And now, again, that is somewhat to do with, the timeline that they're in of, LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but there has to be some, it just has to be better, simply. Yeah. And the thing is, if you can't make, trades, you're essentially stuck with this team, and you kind of just have to figure out from there. I was thinking, like, a similarity to this team would be probably the 2012 Lakers team, who, ideally should have been better. But, again, basically those trades killed them. The Dwight Howard, Steve Nash trades killed them. They had no room to get better, and they just could never figure it out. And this is kind of the path that this year's Lakers team has been going on.
Yeah, no, that's probably the best comparison. But, like, again, it's just kind of disappointing to see how much potential the Lakers actually had and how much expectation there is, and the fact that they're playing this poorly is just sad, honestly, especially for LeBron in his twilight of his career. I expected more out of that. But yeah, so the Lakers definitely are they're in a really bad spot. But speaking of another team that honestly they're in, like, I don't know, they're below what we expected them to be. Now, the Toronto Raptors, we expected them to, not be a world beater, not be a contender, but we didn't expect them to be a playoff team and be a consistent, tough team to beat every night. Now, the Raptors have a record of 8-10, which is 12th in the Eastern Conference, which is very bad. Like, it's giving you Tampa Raptor vibes, which we all want to forget. But here's the crazy part. We at least for us, knowing how the roster's built, we were thinking that the Raptors were going to be a defensive first team that's going to struggle offensively. It's been kind of the opposite, where they're 8th in offensive rating, but 21st in defensive rating. And especially recently, their defense has been horrible.
Basically, since Siakam came back. Now, again, before all you casuals say, oh, Siakam sucks, trade him. That's not the reason why they're struggling. He's been a part of that, but relax, bro. The guy just came back from a surgery.
Pascal Siakam's only played 7 games this season, and hasn't played basketball in 6 months. Like, the guy has some leeway. And I'll talk about some of the benefits that Pascal's actually doing on the court, because it's not all bad. And Pascal's still trying to get his legs under him. But realistically speaking, we never expected this out of a Nick Nurse team. And I think Nick Nurse is even confused by it himself, because the Raptors have the talent. Obviously, they have the personnel to be at least a strong defense, but they're just allowing way too much, their opponents to do way too much. They're not disciplined. And without OG Anunoby especially, it's just been so apparent how the Raptors have so many flaws defensively. Number one is they double team and they overhelp way too much. I've seen it time and time again where against, like, for instance, Damian Lillard, we would double up Damian Lillard only to leave CJ McCollum wide open for a 3. Or we would, guard the perimeter and then only to leave a wide open layup. Things like that are inexcusable for a defense. Like, you cannot allow wide open looks, especially from three, and expect NBA teams to not make their shots. And then, which brings me to the second thing. Overly aggressive closeouts. Now, the Raptors, Nick Nurse's system is designed to prevent the three. Like, they are going to chase you off that line. But the Raptors, especially a player like Chris Boucher, and also obviously some of the rookies, Fee Mikhailuk has been guilty of that a couple of times as well. They're just overly aggressively, close out on the shooter, only to get beat on a pump fake, blow by, and there you go, wide open possession right there. That's not how you win, man. Like, that's not how you defend on any level. And the reality is that's happening far too often to ignore it. And then lastly, again, they're just undersized. Honestly speaking, they don't have a lot of rim protection, and I'll talk about that kind of later in a bit. But their undersizedness is the reason why teams are able to take advantage of them. Now, yeah, they do got some decently sized wings, but from the big man spot and from the guard positions, they're severely undersized.
Again, I think, like you mentioned, their defense has been the most disappointing aspect of this team because of the fact that their defense was supposed to be a strength for them. Now, again, regarding, there's a lot of issues, or a lot of questions or criticisms surrounding Nick Nurse's defense. Number one, I think the biggest issue is that it's just a lot of young guys learning how to play defense, and that's why the defense has not been as good.
Nurse's system is also complicated.
It's complex. It's complex to learn. And again, there was the question of should Nick Nurse simplify the defense for the team, or should he keep it the same and make the young guys work to get better? Now, again, there's an advantage with simplifying it in the sense that maybe you could have some immediate results. But if you're building for the future and you want to build a contender, you want to build it the right way. You want to build up young guys the right way, to play the right way, and to understand and have high IQs. And that's not going to happen if you simplify the defense for these guys. Therefore, I'd rather take the fact that these guys have to learn a lot than try to simplify and dumb it down for these guys and then they get lazy. I'd rather not have that. So, I mean, despite the criticism of Nick Nurse's defense, I still think it'll get better. Now, regarding the point of aggressive closeouts, we know what Nick Nurse's defense is, right? Deny the paint, and then run like crazy to deny the three-point shot, right? Unfortunately, again, those aggressive closeouts have not been the best. Now, again, the statistics say if you aggressively close out, the opponents will miss more shots than they take. The issue is that when that only works when you have veteran defenders, smart defenders like Marc Gasol backing you up, right? We know the Raptors in their championship season still did that. They aggressively closed out the three-point shooters, but that worked when you had a guy like Marc Gasol, a guy like Serge Ibaka to back you up. You don't have those guys for you anymore, and so when aggressive closeout happens, you just see all these breakdowns that happen for the Toronto Raptors defense, and that comes with the lack of experience, right? So again, I think a lot of these issues can be traced back to just the youth on this team, which is fine. But, that's kind of what contributes to what's wrong with the Raptors defense.
Yeah, and again, like you mentioned, like it's about personnel. Like when Nick Nurse's system, we've seen how effective it can be when it's done by the right people.
2019 Raptors defense is probably the greatest thing I've ever watched.
Yeah, like again, like it works. The system works. It's about getting these guys up to speed, and so far it just hasn't worked out this season, which is really surprising considering the defense is what we expected to be really good. Now, I am going to bring up the offense as a negative point because, again, the offense is doing well, but here's the problem. The Raptors are a transition-based team. They're a team that's going to rely upon transition. Case in point, they're 27th in pace. They're not a team that is built to be 27th in pace. They're a team that's built to be fast-paced. Why aren't they moving up and down the court faster? Too many stagnant offensive possessions. And it makes it difficult because when you're giving up so many points defensively, it's difficult when you have a stagnant offense to get back into these games, to gain momentum, to play harder on defense. And that's a problem. And another thing, going back to the defense, you can't get out in transition without getting stops defensively.
Exactly.
And that's the biggest problem right now. So because of the defense, it's affecting the offense, where the Raptors are now 27th in pace. They are 28th in assists because they can't move the ball. They don't have that, at least those creators that can create looks or actually hit shots. They are 23rd in field goal percentage. And that's the big problem. Like, there's only 4 guys I can trust on the Raptors to create their own shot. Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. That is it. And all 4 of those guys start. So you kind of see the problem here. There's nobody else on that team who can actively create their own offense. And defenses know that.
For the offense, like you mentioned, basically there's 2 types of guys besides these 4 guys on the Raptors, right? There's the guys who can finish the possessions but not get their own shots, like a Sviv Mikhailiuk, like ideally Chris Boucher, ideally, like a Kem Birch. Guys who can at least finish the possession, but they can't get their own shot. Whereas you have also on the opposite side a bunch of guys on the Raptors who can, create their shot, but they can't hit the shot. Delano Banton, Malachi Flynn, Scotty Barnes. These guys can dribble, they can get their shots up, but they can't finish their shots. And that's basically the problem with the Raptors offense. Despite the fact that they have a good offensive rating, they're a top 10 offense in the league. When you look at them, it doesn't seem like they have a top 10 offense in the league.
No.
And again, like we mentioned, it's a tale of, 2 ends on the court for the Raptors, and it's been a disappointing one thus far because of the fact that this was not what the team was supposed to be. Now, again, if it wasn't what the team was supposed to be, but yet they were winning, I think we'd be fine with it. The problem is this wasn't what the team was supposed to be and was built for, and they're not winning either.
And they're losing to teams they shouldn't lose to. Like, they lost to Cleveland when they were winning that entire game. They gave it up in the fourth quarter and with 4.8 seconds left. They lost to Detroit because the Detroit Pistons just outplayed them. They outworked them.
And basically they gave up a bunch of threes at the end.
They gave up a bunch of threes. And then, so when you're losing the teams that you're not supposed to be losing to, it really compounds that the holes and the weaknesses of your team. And not to say that this is an excuse at all, but the next reason that I want to point out why the Raptors, what's wrong with the Raptors is they've been injured and they've had a lot of underperforming players on their team. Like, we mentioned Pascal Siakam. Now, he's just getting back. He came off surgery. He hasn't played basketball in 6 months. He's only played 7 games. Defensively, it's coming along. He's not perfect at all on defense right now.
The Utah game was rough.
The Utah game was very rough for him. But other than offensively, Pascal's been really good. He's been hitting his jump shots, 3-point shot. The mid-range looks really good. He's moving well. And he's not interfering, like, especially when he was playing alongside OG, when OG was feeling it. He wasn't interfering with what OG was doing. He was playing within the flow of the game, which is exactly what you want to see out of Pascal, because that's what he did with Kawhi was on the team.
He's a system player offensively. Now, he's a very gifted system player offensively in the sense that he can get 25 points a night, but he needs a role within the offense. He's not an isolation type of guy, every single time down the court. And so the fact that he's taking those smarter shots, now again, comparatively to last season where basically he kind of had no help half the time, I think he's fine with deferring a lot of the times and getting his shots off of, for example, like dump offs from Gary Trent Jr. or off of, pick and pops with Fred.
And there are more players that he can now rely upon. Like, it's not just Fred anymore. There's Gary Trent, who's been so great this season. OG Anunoby has been playing very well. So Pascal has some guys. And Svi Mihailo can be a good release valve. So they have some guys who Pascal can kind of trust more and kind of, defer a little bit more to. So obviously him not being 100% is definitely hurting the team. OG Anunoby, he was playing so well and he ended up getting hurt now. So that's a big loss.
That's 20 points gone right there.
He averages 20 points a game, and I think realistically he could have averaged more the way he was playing. And honestly, defensively, I think is where he's so missed right now. Like, I can glaringly see like against the Warriors, the Raptors are playing. Like, Andrew Wiggins went off on that game because Scotty Barnes can't have that same on-ball level defense that OG Anunoby brings. Because, again, experience, positioning, timing, that all comes into a play factor. Which brings me into more of the bench players. A guy who hasn't even played this season is Yuta Watanabe. Yuta Watanabe, we were expecting a lot of big things out of Utah, but unfortunately he got hurt. Now he can still bring those things to the Raptors, but it doesn't help that he's not there. And then it also doesn't help where guys like Chris Boucher and Precious Achua are severely underperforming.
Now, again, the thing with Precious Achua, I can at least be a little bit fine with it. He's basically a second-year player. He's technically really a rookie because he barely played in his rookie season for the Miami. He's kind of his first time on the court. So I'll give some slack
And
to
there's
Precious.
upside there. Like, there's upside with Precious.
Exactly. There's a lot of upside. The issue is with Chris Boucher. Now, Chris Boucher, I think a lot of people thought that Chris Boucher would be really good, but for me personally,
Well, he had a great year last year.
He had a great year, but again, Chris Boucher is 28. He's almost hitting that 30 mark. And this is kind of what he's always been as a player, right? He had that one blip basically last season where he was amazing, but he's kind of, I think, regressed to what he is.
The fact that our two rookies, Delano Banton and Scotty Barnes, are more disciplined on defense than Chris Boucher should tell you a lot about, how Chris Boucher is as a player.
Now, again, Chris Boucher, credit to him, he plays really hard, which we all respect. But
And when he's on, he's great.
Unfortunately, like you said, the discipline and just the bad IQ at times. Like, offensively, man, this guy chucks up shots.
Yeah, man. And you just question what the guy's doing.
Shout out William Liu. I think he said best. Dragic had to learn that when you have a give and go with Chris Boucher, Dragic had to learn that means give the ball to Chris Boucher and go get the rebound because that ball's not coming back.
Yeah, pretty much. But again, speaking of those two guys, the Raptors have no backup big to play on their team. Like Precious Achua, he's great. Now Kem Birch has been really solid for the Raptors.
Birch has been amazing.
Like defensively, he's just been an anchor for the team.
Offensively, he's been amazing too.
Offensively, again, like he's a reliable big. But besides that, the Raptors don't have another reliable big off the bench. We just talked about Boucher being underwhelming. And Precious, although there's upside, he's undersized. And that's the problem when you have matchups against like the Joel Embiids, the Andre Drummonds, the Steven Adams,
Nikola Jokic.
Like, these guys are too big for a guy like Precious Achua to play against. And frankly, Kem Birch can't do it all himself.
And Kem Birch is like 6'9".
Yeah.
That's not that big either.
He's 6'9".
He's just strong as hell.
So, again, when you factor in, we're 29th in defensive rebounding, so we can't even get our own board. We're giving up off second chances to the opponents. 19th in total rebounding, and then we're 22nd in blocks. So we don't have any rim protection. We don't have rebounding, which is exactly what you wanted from your center spot. We're not getting that. And that's something that's a big problem. And then, which brings me to my biggest pet peeve with the Raptors right now is the bench. The bench is so inconsistent. Like, our starters, believe it or not, do really well together. Like, our starting lineup does really well. But, again, the bench is so inconsistent. Svi Mykhailiuk, very up and down. Although, again, I do like him as a player, and I like what he can bring. He's very up and down. Delano Banton also been up and down. And again, he doesn't have that offensive creation yet. And he's a rookie. And we didn't really expect him to get this much rotation time. Let's be real.
Bro, we expected him to be in the G League.
Pretty much.
The fact that this guy's even on the team right now and playing significant minutes is a lot of credit.
I mean, even when he went to the G League, he dominated. Yeah. So, like, the guy is not a G League player. He's an NBA player. So, those two guys as your backcourt, again, that's inconsistency right there. Yuta Watanabe should help fix some of those issues, bringing in another shooter, bringing in a defender.
Another creator. He's a great playmaker.
Exactly. Bringing in another creator. So, he should help fix some of those issues. But again, you don't have any creation off your bench. You don't have you can't rely upon your bench to, consistently keep you in games. And we tried Gary Trent Jr. off the bench. That doesn't work. So he plays.
It's the Norman Powell problem.
It's a Norman Powell problem, but he plays so well with the starters. You cannot take him off. And same thing with Scotty Barnes, because he can't create for himself yet. And so you can't put him on the bench because that'll just exaggerate the problems even more that's already there.
Side note, when we were talking about the Norman Powell problem, Raptors fans know what we're talking about. It's basically the fact that guys like Gary Trent and Norman Powell, alongside the starters, are absolutely amazing. When you send them to a bench, it does not go so well. But yeah, like you mentioned, like a guy like Svi, again, we have to think about this. So Svi's also in his third, fourth year, whatever it is. He's also a very young player. So again, up and downs are kind of expected. This is probably his biggest role in his career thus far, too. Like, he hasn't played this many minutes in his career either, What I am surprised about with Fee, and a pleasant surprise, is that we somehow turned him into a very good defender, which is which has been amazing. I think the progression for his Fee on the defensive end has been amazing because this guy's been crazy.
The steals, the active hands.
Unfortunately, it seems like it's kind of come at a cost of his offensive game, which how hard he works defensively, that's kind of to be expected. But we also need his 3-point shot to bail us out on a lot of possessions.
Well, we also don't generate open looks for him too, which is also another thing. If the guy is getting a little bit more open looks, like maybe he'd be hitting more of them. But instead, we're giving him the ball and having him create that shot, and he just can't do that. So,
at least not yet.
At least not yet. And same goes with Scotty Barnes. We've seen the guy shows flashes that he can create. He's got to make those shots. And eventually he will. With the potential that Scotty Barnes has, he's going to make those shots. But it's just not there yet. So some of the next steps for the Raptors, obviously the defense needs to improve like big time. Like it cannot be this bad where you're literally scoring the same amount as you're giving up on the other end. Like it just can't be that way. And a lot of that, like I said, Zeeshan mentioned, like a lot of that will get cleaned up with like scheming, with guys getting more familiar with the system. That should iron itself out. But that's a big fix that you got to have. Offensively, again, although the team statistically looks, the numbers look good statistically, they need another creator, especially for the bench. You can't keep relying upon 3-4 guys to create all your offense for you. It's just not sustainable.
Those 3-4 guys basically are at the top of the league in terms of minutes played.
Yeah, because
Fred has been at the top of the league. OG's been at the top of the league. Pascal's been at the top of the league since basically they've played significant minutes for the Raptors every single season.
Yeah, and again, that's not sustainable for a full 82-game season. And the last thing I'll say is they need a trade. It's time for a trade. I know it's early in the season, but this team is missing stuff right now, and they need to get rid of underperforming or not underutilized players that can actually, and for players that can actually add value to your team and actually fix your issues. Like we need a center, that's number one, and we also need a creator, like I just mentioned earlier. And there's 3 guys who are on our trade block right now. It's Chris Boucher, Goran Dragic, because the guy's not even playing, and we're paying him $19 million to sit his ass on the bench, and unfortunately for me, Malachi Flynn. Like, I really like Malachi, and I think he has a lot of potential. But again, Delano Banton's been so good that we can't get minutes for him. And that's someone, and he could be used as a trade asset to kind of flip one of them too.
Again, the one that hurts is Malachi Flynn, like you mentioned, because I think all Raptors fans love Malachi Flynn, but the problem is it's going to be one of those situations where there's not enough space. He's not going to blossom on this team, and until he goes to another team, that's when you can really see him shine. Chris Boucher's been garbage most of the time. Sometimes he plays good. And then Goran Dragic, again, we didn't really get him. We didn't trade for him to keep him on the team, basically. So Masai Ujiri, after December, this will all be fixed, hopefully.
Yeah, he's going to be working the phones at some point. And yeah, last thing I'll point out, the Raptors need to get healthy. I loved what I was seeing with OG Anunoby, and I want to see that guy back, man. But Kem Birch is also ailing, so they need to get healthy as well in order to fix a lot of the issues that they have going on with the team. But yeah, that's what's wrong with the Raptors and the Lakers. Let us know what you guys think. Do you agree or disagree with those teams? Obviously, it's been a bit of a struggle for them, but hopefully they can turn it around. I have more faith in the Raptors than I do the Lakers. Let's be real. But we'll see.
At the same time, we don't have LeBron James. So.
Yeah, we don't have LeBron James. But we'll see what happens, man. Moving us on into the up and under segment for this week. First and foremost, are you up or under on Nuggets? Michael Porter Jr. likely out for the season with a nerve injury in his back. Now he has had a history of back issues. And PJ Dozier is out for the season with the torn ACL.
Yeah, man, it's unfortunate. The Nuggets are just completely decimated with injuries, and it's unfortunate because of the fact that when we were looking at them last year, not even like a couple seasons ago, literally last year, we were looking at them as a championship contender, literally right there, with the big 3 of Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and a bunch of good role players around them. You know, their whole team was pretty good. They had a 3-headed monster. They had a great complementary guy in Aaron Gordon. Then they had a bunch of good pieces. And now it looks like it's kind of just all breaking down, basically. Michael Porter Jr., the issue with Michael Porter Jr. is that his health has always been the issue, right? And that's why he slid to 14th or 13th, whatever it was. And it's always been the back. And again, this was kind of the risk that the Nuggets had to take when they gave him that contract. Now, again, I don't fault them for giving that contract because that's kind of what the market dictates at this point, right? But that's kind of the risk that you had to take. And unfortunately, PJ Dozier is another guy that was, another diamond in the rough that the Denver Nuggets found, similar to Monte Morris, Will Barton, who was struggling early in his career until he got to Denver. These guys are diamond in the roughs that, Denver's scouting team has been great at finding. And unfortunately, PJ Dozier, will lose this season. And, unfortunately, again, like I said, with the season that Nikola Jokic is having, of, just the historic greatness that he's putting out on a daily basis, it's unfortunate that, this is kind of what he's going to be asked to work with.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks because, again, they're two talented young players. Now, there's good and bad that the Nuggets gave Michael Porter Jr. that contract. It's good because they also locked up a lot of their other core players as well. So it's not like this was a win it, go all in, win it this year sort of thing. They have it like next year and stuff too. But here's the thing: Jamal Murray is also coming off an injury. Now Michael Porter Jr. is coming off injury. PJ Dozier, like a lot of these guys are coming off injuries. How healthy are they going to be next season? And that's the big thing.
Jokic is injured right now.
Jokic is injured right now. Like Jokic is carrying a huge load. You can't expect the guy to keep doing that especially when he's going to be in a contract year next year as well. So it's kind
Didn't they already sign him to an extension?
I don't think he signed an extension yet.
Either way, he'll sign the extension.
No, he'll sign an extension, but it's also just like you can't expect the guy to carry that big of a load for so long. Like, you know what
Basically, they're a top 5 team when he's on the court, and they become the worst team in the league when he's off the court.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Next up, unfortunately, another piece of unfortunate news. The Cavaliers, Colin Sexton, will also be out for the season with a torn meniscus. So what are your thoughts on that and how that situation is going to play out for both the player and for Cleveland?
I mean, it sucks for Colin Sexton for sure because, again, he's the guy who was looking for a contract and the Cavs didn't want to pay him. But I think for the Cavs, it's kind of a blessing it's a blessing and a curse for the Cavs because, number one, now you get to see more of Darius Garland and kind of give the reins to him and kind of see what more potential does he have in him. And I think there is a lot more potential in Darius Garland than there is in Colin Sexton. But it also sucks for the Cavs because now they can't trade Colin Sexton because he's hurt. So that kind of sucks.
Yeah, man. Like, again, for the Cavs, again, like, nobody ever wants to see an injury. So it's definitely never a good thing to have a player injured at all. But for the Cavs' point of view, it's tough because despite the fact that it would free up Darius Garland, and his responsibilities, it's also the fact that you just want another scorer there. It's always nice to have a player who you can at least rely on to get like 18 points a game.
Yeah,
right. You'd rather have that 18 points a game than not have that. 18
also, what other backcourt can you call Sexland?
Yeah, again, legendary backcourt duo. So yeah, shout out to Colin Sexton, MPJ, PJ Dozier. Hopefully, all those guys get injured. I mean, don't get. Hopefully,
they all get healthy.
They all get healthy is what I meant.
Words are hard.
Oops. Yeah. Okay.
Words are hard.
Yeah.
But
hopefully they get healthy, and then hopefully, obviously, they come back better than ever. So
absolutely,
shout out to all those guys for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of some positive news, the hit list is back and it's working. It's back. Sacramento Kings have fired head coach Luke Walton. Are you up or under? And there's only one option.
I am up. There's
that is
only
the correct
one
option.
correct option. Now again, I don't want to act like we're happy about a guy losing his job, but realistically he'll be fine. And either way, he sucked at his job. Let's be honest, right? This should have happened
last year.
It should have happened before last year, man.
It
should have never happened. It should have never happened is what it should be. It should have never happened. We literally, you can go back to whenever he got hired, and you can find the episode where we talked about his hiring. And I'm 99% sure we both said this was a bad hire. I definitely said it was a bad hire because we knew right away. We knew right away. After his Lakers stint, hiring Luke Walton was not it. And, like, bro, what was this guy doing? Like, can we point to one thing he actually did successfully for the Sacramento Kings? No, we can't.
In fact, he regressed them.
From
what Dave Yeager got him to, they regressed.
Like, the biggest note about the Sacramento Kings, the most successful season that they had was when they were like at the top of the league in pace. They're running up and down the court with De'Aaron Fox, and they won a good amount of games. Luke Walton came in and said, "Nah, we're gonna play the slowest pace in the league with De'Aaron Fox at the point guard spot." Logic.
There isn't any, but yeah, I mean, it was bound to happen. At least you can say Vivek Ranadive did one thing right. Now,
I mean, it shouldn't have happened in the first place, so I don't think we can count that as
but
something right.
it's the Kings. Like, honestly, their franchise is just so poorly run, man. Like, I can never justify any decisions they make.
Listen, man, if there's two fan bases, I will accept that they jump off their team and bandwagon other teams. It's the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Sacramento Kings. I do not fault you guys at all for bandwagoning other teams. I do not. I can't even imagine how sad that would be.
Bro, it's so sad.
Yeah.
Bro, I looked at the stat. I think the Kings haven't made the playoffs in like what 15 years.
I think it's 14. They have the longest.
It's the longest
playoff
drought. Yeah, in the NBA.
And then finally, are you up or under on the LeBron James Isaiah Stewart fight? Now, LeBron James got suspended for one game for his punch slap on Isaiah Stewart, and Isaiah Stewart got suspended for 2 games for going absolute ape crazy.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of under on it because I expected more. Like, I think that's what I wanted. Like, the way it built up and escalated so quickly, I was like, yo, this someone's gonna throw hands here. But nothing happened. But then also at the same time, I'm looking at the punishments that the NBA gave down. I'm like, you gave Isaiah Stewart only 2 games? You had to make an example out of this guy. The guy ran over coaches. Like, he could have injured a coach or an official or anybody, really, who was trying to stop a madman 7-footer from, like, trying to punch someone because he got hit in the face.
Bro, Detroit Lions need to offer him that contract.
Yo,
man.
Dan Campbell's already on the phone with him. He's like, that brother has heart. He goes for kneecaps. Like,
bro, that guy would be a good tight end, man. The guy, bro, he's jacked. Isaiah Stewart's jacked, bro.
Apparently, he boxed a lot in high school.
I wouldn't doubt that, man. That guy's jacked, bro. Like, if you saw that dude coming towards you, I am running the other way.
You should run the other way. But, like, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, and the thing is, the way it all happened, like, okay, LeBron hit you. I get it. Was it a great play by LeBron? No. But did LeBron mean to do it? I don't think he meant to hit him in the face and cut him. And
I think he meant to hit him. I don't think he meant to hit him in the face.
Yeah, and LeBron apologized for that. But, again, I don't think it warranted Isaiah Stewart literally losing his mind.
Again, I wouldn't fault Isaiah Stewart if he tried to get back at LeBron, but the problem was
do it right away.
But exactly, like, he was literally right in front of LeBron. He didn't do anything. Now, again, it can be argued that he went absolutely crazy once he felt the blood, which, okay, maybe that was the case. But at the same time, like you mentioned, man, like, you're already all the way there. You're not getting to LeBron when there's like 95 people between you. There's no point, man. Just relax. There's no point of losing those 2 game checks, of having that reputation now going forward. And, again, going after the commissioner is never a good idea, man.
Well, here's the thing. It's the fact of the matter is, why is this only 2 games? The guy could have legitimately hurt somebody if if things escalated even further. So you're giving him 2 games. The second thing, why did LeBron get a suspension?
For punching him, basically.
That's a flagrant 2. He should have been ejected from the game.
I think it's the blood that got him suspended.
Come on.
It's the blood.
No, man.
I think it's the blood.
I think it's just because people wanted LeBron to face some sort of punishment that they're like, okay, take a game.
Yeah, because they were basically, all eyes were on the NBA, that they're like, is the NBA gonna suspend the commissioner or not? All right, are they gonna suspend him? So I think they probably just had to suspend him just because protect their reputation. Yeah.
LeBron suspended himself, but no, I mean, I'm under, because I'm just like, the situation should not have gone as far as it did, and then also the punishment is just pathetic in my opinion.
I mean, I would say I'm up just because it's me.
Yeah, it's you, because you just like to scrap. That's basically it.
It was just funny, man. I was watching. I was just dying, bro.
Dude,
it was so funny.
I was trying to figure out what the hell happened. I'm like, yo, this happened on an NBA game?
Shout out Isaiah Stewart, though, because this guy always goes at people. I respect it, man, because this guy, he's an undersized center, but whenever people push him, he always pushes back. I respect that, so I respect Isaiah Stewart, man.
Yeah, man. Like, at least, like, the guy fights back, so that's pretty cool. I want to see him and James Johnson go at it. That's what I want to see.
Listen, James Johnson is, what was it, 7-0?
Oh, yeah, that guy's a beast. I just want to see him fight
crazy,
someone.
Bro. That guy's crazy. He's like, I think it's like 7-0. all his brothers are all like undefeated or something too. Like, bro, his whole family's just like, bro, you don't want to mess with any of those
You don't
guys.
want to mess with them. But with that, that concludes this week's episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely subscribe to the show on all the various platforms. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, YouTube. Basically, wherever you can find a podcast, you can find us with the Up and Under Podcast. Also, follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Up&Under Podcast, Facebook.com/Up and Under Podcast for all the latest updates whenever we post a new episode or reaction to news as they occur. So definitely check that out if you haven't done so. Also, check out our website, upandunderpodcast.com. It's our central hub for the show. It's a place where we write blog posts with every single episode. So if you don't have time to listen or watch the full thing, you can read about it on our website. So definitely check that out if you haven't done so. And yeah, man, we said at the beginning of the episode, time is flying. Like, we're almost 20 games into the season, and sooner or later, we're going to get into December, the Christmas break.
It's been a great season, though.
It's been a very great season.
Despite the fact that our team sucks. But
hey, man, like, the one thing is it's not going as we expected it to play out. We're like, it would be Brooklyn and LA. Like, we're seeing some different stuff going on right now.
Again, there's no actual favorite right now, I would say.
Yeah, there's no favorite right now. And that's an exciting thing to have, especially for the NBA.
Especially the new rule changes.
Especially with the new
amendments, I said.
Yeah, they've been great. But yeah, man, we're going to keep on watching the season. We're going to keep on bringing you more content. But that concludes this week's episode. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.
Easy.